Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. It's been a fun week. Had a little festivities earlier in the week. Maybe you heard of it.
Yep. Yes, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. And James, wanted to say hi to James Littleton, who's joined the show. Fashionably late. How are you, brother?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right. So it's opening day in baseball. It's also what I like to call Jaggies Aftermath Week, where all the award recipients try to retaliate. First, they start with Jim, who ignores them entirely because he has zero respect for any of them in the first place. So he's not going to respond to people that he doesn't respect.
Nope.
If you don't respect them, they ain't insulting you. It can't happen, right? And then it goes on to me, and then I don't respond. And then the poor souls that think we need defended get attacked after that. And it all dies down in a couple weeks. And before you know it, obviously Tomlin is just an a-hole to everyone else he usually was an a-hole to instead of us. That's all.
Yes. Listen, the Jaggies tends to ruffle some feathers. And for any of our listeners who don't know what the Jaggies are, it is the top 10 worst Pittsburgh sports accounts that I do every March. And it's because those accounts deserve it. And they change every year. And it's based on how terrible they are. And they always, Gary, they always prove us right. Do they not?
9 times out of 10, I'd have to say yes. They tend to do exactly as you'd expect.
I mean,
I got great actually.
I got 4 or 5 responses directly from Jaggies recipients, and that tells me that it gets under their skin, and I'm more than happy to do it. And I hope people enjoyed it because those accounts are truly, truly awful. And God, it's a fun time.
It is. So last week we did a poll question, and I intentionally didn't run it last week because I thought you might get caught up in the hype of opening day. So I wanted to ask a little early, get maybe a more true indication of where you thought. It was a simple question. I'll put the poll question up here for everybody. It was, let's see. Give us your sales pitch. Call your shot. What prediction do you want to hear? Over 81, under 81. We had 73% went the over, 73, and 27% went under. I was shocked by that, Jim. That's not the pulse that I felt we were seeing when we were online. I still don't think it is. Most of the comments I get are way below that. But that poll question went very skewed, and I intentionally waited until it wouldn't get near there. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, it's funny. You got that result. I did one just who would win the NL Central, and the Pirates did not get a lot of votes into that one. So, I think what would be really interesting is after these first couple games, and we're doing this show right after the first one, how much that would change just based on a couple games. And that is always the beauty of social media and people getting very caught up in what's going on right now. But overall, I would say that, I think people have a little more hope right now than they've had in a long time. And I think people are almost scared to say it for 2 reasons. One, they don't want to feel stupid based on the Pirates, right? And what the Pirates typically do. Sure. And then 2, they don't want derided or mocked by the people that are out there that always bash on the Pirates. And so I think there's some element to that, Gary, that tends to get lost in all this is the fear of retaliation of how stupid can you be, right?
That explains it a little bit. And James, I think, like, I was talking about holding off on asking it because I didn't want to get like those overtly positive, close to opening day vibes from it. But I think maybe Jim's onto something here. You give people a chance to answer anonymously. Like, do you think they're going to be over 500? I think most fans skew that way, but just would never say it publicly.
Yeah. I think he had something right about them not wanting to look stupid or something of that nature. I intentionally did not vote because I pushed. I think they'll finish at 81 and 81.
Okay.
So I couldn't pick either one. But yeah, I think people do have hope for this season. And I've been saying all along, 24 was the season to start having hope. I mean, we've been doing this for a few years now. I've always said 24 is when they'll start really being competitive. I don't think they'll win the division, but I think they'll definitely compete for that title. But I just don't see the division.
I think the Pirates are kind of like Vanilla Ice, right? People listen to that song and they dig it, but you don't admit it, right? Or there's that one Backstreet Boys song that, man, it's just is kind of catchy.
Don't make me sing again, Jim. Don't make me sing.
But you know what I'm saying? Like there's things that you don't want to admit that you'll do or you like, and I think the Pirates fall into they're the Backstreet Boys of the Vanilla Ice of baseball.
Yeah, and I think like as the season plays on, people will kind of get one back and everything. I'll tell you what I'm seeing a lot that disturbs me though, like on social media, especially Facebook. It's a lot easier on Facebook to do this. Is just seeing people want to group up with people that think alike. Like this group is only going to be positive. Well, have you ever watched baseball? There are negative things that happen throughout every game. Like,
look at the opener.
To not be able to talk about that stuff is just to not see the whole game, and to just, you can't tolerate hearing anything you disagree with. I don't get that. Like if you want to come at me with something really stupid, I'll tell you it's stupid. But like an opinion about like, hey, I think Henry Davis is not going to be a good catcher all year, even though he looks great right now. I'd basically say why. But it doesn't matter to me that you feel that way. I could care less. Like, why can't you just coexist with other people on social media? Why do you got to cut everybody out? It's so dumb and segmented. Then you end up talking to 5-6 people. The point is to spread your wings, right? I mean, shit, people.
I mean, yeah, I think people like living in their own bubbles, right? Whether it's Pirates or politics or whatever. It's like you just want to hear what reinforces what you believe and what you want to think. And, we all three, I think, are people that we're not afraid to say we're wrong. And we're not afraid to say we can't learn things. So,
nope. I mean, I'll tell you what, one thing I do hate. I hate the phrase, I hope I'm wrong. No, you don't. Hey, none of you hope you're wrong. You hope you're proven right so that you can wave that over everyone's freaking head for 6 weeks that you said something was going to happen. You don't want to be proven wrong. Don't lie to me. Like, if you say that, you're just a liar. That's really all you are. So we got some other things we got to talk about, though. We got to talk about the roster moves that happened that we didn't know about last week, Jim. I think we have some things to say about Bailey Falter in the rotation, Olivares winning out over McKinney, Peguero for Alika, Hunter Stratton and Ryder Ryan making the team. The injuries caused it. Talk about all that stuff. Or we could go right into opening day. What do you think?
Oh, man. That opening day game was a hell of a game, Gary. I'm not going to lie.
Well, let's not bury the excitement then. Let's come right back with opening day, and then we'll get into the roster moves, shall we?
Nice sweatshirt, James.
Thanks.
Yes, it is pretty sweet.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on a special late night edition of the Pirates Fan Forum. We're actually super excited to be able to do this for some of our West Coast people that don't get to make it all the time. You know, while they're sitting in LA rush hour traffic, you know, It's nice to be able to be on for them a little bit. So opening day, man, you know, all the pomp and circumstance, I got to be honest, I didn't feel it in Miami. It just didn't come across like it was much of anything, that it wasn't really a sold out stadium. It didn't look like the roof was closed. So it kind of didn't sound like a baseball game. You know, I don't know. I guess I wish the roof would have been open. At least that would have made it a little bit more, you know, outdoorsy feeling. Just didn't feel right to me on that level. At least the game itself was great. We'll talk about that. But what'd you guys think of the atmosphere first, James?
I think they had Neymar throw out the first pitch, didn't they? I mean, nothing more baseball opening day than having a international soccer star throw out the first pitch. So yeah, that's. I mean, you couldn't find somebody better, Marlins related.
I mean, they had to find somebody that could find the ballpark. So. Jim, what did you think, man? I mean, it was better than watching the Cardinals parade trucks around with guys and everything, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, not the greatest environment. What I will say is I actually do enjoy watching baseball that is played early in the season where the elements aren't really a factor. So for me, it's just crisp, it's clean from that perspective. So Miami's a funny town. So other than that, I was just glad to see the season get started. I feel like March went a long time for these games to start mattering.
Right. So I would say first thing I took away from this game, this is exactly the type of game that this team is built to win. A tight game late that their bullpen can take over. I think ideally you'd like to have more of those runners not left on base, but and you'd like to run the bases a little cleaner, right? In fact, I think somebody actually requested to hear what Littleton thinks of Davis having the go sign there. You might as well give the people what they want.
Go, James.
I love on Twitter how everybody was talking about how Davis is dumb and doesn't know how to run the bases. I mean, you can clearly see the third base coach waving him. I mean,
I must have got corrected 40 times. All I did is said, I'm not sure why Davis tried to score. Can't you just accept that that's part of the whole situation?
I mean, he's doing what he's told. I mean,
yeah, you can't comment on that play until you start seeing what the third base coach is doing, right? Like you have to be able to see that because, you know, guy runs through a stop sign, have at him, man. Like you can't do that. Guy takes his eye off the third base coach and misses it. Can't do that. When the guy is sent by the third base coach, you go, man. That's just it. You go.
No,
yeah, then here's Josh Bell playing Gold Glove defense.
I did not know late blocking changed on the infield end, so I did learn something today. So I'm happy about that.
No, that's true. I did not know that either.
I also thought they said that was partially because the ball led him there. I think they're allowed to catch it if the ball leads them there too. So there's like gray area and subjectivity to it a little bit.
He looked planted to me. I mean,
yeah.
But infield end, so I guess, and I mean, with the Gold Glover at first base, I mean, what a stupid send.
I hardly want to give, the Pirates credit for anything on running the bases, and I think the umps felt the same way because they didn't look very clean, did they? I've seen Pony League games where guys seem to know what they were doing a little bit better. So
this is far beyond my scope, but I would love to know teams that actually won a ball game with having 3 runners thrown out at between third and home late in a game from X inning on. I cannot imagine that happens very often, and somehow the Pirates won that game. So
well, let's talk about the pitching a little bit. It's obviously been our biggest concern all year. First, let's start with the good. The bullpen, 7 innings of shutout baseball. I mean, like, Josh Fleming only got, 1 guy out, but it was a big out, and Hunter Stratton looked good. Ryan Borucki looked incredible. Luis Ortiz impressed me. And man, was he pumped after he got that out. And then Jose Hernandez, who's only here because Rwanzi's on paternity leave, like hasn't even been here 24 hours yet, right? He comes in and closes this game out, his first ever save as a professional. That's pretty awesome back end today. They held it down.
go ahead, James.
Borucki was amazing. I know Jim had the eyeballs on Twitter, but yeah, the whole bullpen really shut down today. I mean, I was a little concerned with no Bednar, but I don't know why they didn't start him on the IL if he still can't go in a close game, or they don't want to pitch him in a close game. But yeah, it's lights out today. That's what we expect all season. That's why they're a top 5 bullpen, I think, in most rankings.
Yeah, and I don't even think they're at the height of their powers. So, I mean, like we also found out David Bednar wasn't available today, even though he will be available the rest of the series. Some voodoo magic about that being a day he needed off for this lat recovery or something, and it was either that or put him on the IL, was what Derek Shelton said. So, okay. I mean, like, hey, it worked, So I'm sure if it didn't work, there'd be a lot more complaints out there, even though it was about player health. And then we would have been telling you, hey, it's about player health, and it would have been a whole thing. Jim, what did you think of Aroldis Chapman? He looked a lot better than he did in his last spring outing, where it looked like he was just playing wiffle ball.
Yeah, he looked like Aroldis Chapman is what he looked like. I mean, this guy, when he is throwing the way he's capable of throwing, you don't have much of a chance. And he looked great. Borucki looked great. I'm going to single out Luis Ortiz because let's talk about this guy. It's not his typical, preferred role. He comes in and you start thinking about trying to pitch with a guy on second already in those circumstances, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about being the away team. 1 pitch is all it takes, right? Game's over. 1 pitch. It's really all it takes. So, for him to show up like he did and give them 1+ innings, for Jose Hernandez to turn around and do what he did, for Jared Triolo to do what he did, not to get off the pitching, but like you're seeing younger guys step up. It's exactly what they need and exactly what they're going to have throughout the course of the season. So for the first game, those are the type of things that, like, yes, you got your veteran contributions, but you're going to need some of these younger cats to do some things, and they did. And hats off.
And I want to touch on one more thing about how the back end of the game turned out, James, and I'll turn to you for this. Before we circle back to Keller, because I don't want to lose sight of Keller's outing, I just wanted to kind of cover how the back end of that game went. It was almost like a tale of 2 games, The way that Shelton handled that back end in the extra innings, he was liberally walking a guy. Like I think a lot of us have kind of been calling for to combat this runner at second thing. I wonder if the league will look to legislate that out if that continues and other teams start to do it, because it definitely is taking away from the effectiveness of it. Or will teams counter by starting to bunt? I mean, what did you think of the way the end of that game played out?
I thought it was very smart. I've been wondering why more managers don't fill up first base and put the second play in order. It just makes, or the double play. Sorry, it just makes sense to me that would be the play, and to not seen it regularly over the last couple of seasons, it's befuddled me, and I've never understood it, but I was really glad to see it. I don't know how they could legislate it though. I mean, all you do is then pitch around them, or I mean,
Yeah, I hear you there. It wouldn't be easy to do, but maybe it's as simple as just saying no intentional walk.
or
you know,
walk the guy at second to third, or you'd let everybody advance the base.
Yeah, I mean, it takes away a little bit defensively of what you want to be able to do, right? Because you have to be at certain depths and you can't shift as hard or whatever if you're going to try to be set up for a double play. So there's some strategy on the other side that you would negate. But yeah, I mean, I personally, the things that jump out at me in these extra inning games is why you're not walking the first guy, or you know what I mean, like first guy when you need to. And then these teams, the Pirates do it, so does everybody. The run on contact stuff to me is like, I understand it to a degree, but I also think like we're talking about major league ball players executing. I think more times than not, you're going to lose that. You're going to lose that equation. So there's just some interesting strategy out there that, as this goes on, I wonder how teams will start to combat it.
Yeah, it's definitely, maybe it'll put a little more strategy back in the game over time here. Maybe it will bring the bunt back in a little bit, at least in extras. Maybe it'll force people to try to hit the contact the opposite field or something. Maybe it'll change some things. I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to think of. I thought it was something cool to play with. Mitch Keller didn't have it today. Not really. I mean, he had spurts of it, and I think they showed a breakdown. Again, he's throwing that cutter and sweeper, a lot with his four-seam fastball. Between those three, I think it was over 65 or 70% of the pitches he threw today. There's just not enough difference in those pitches to get the kind of outs he was wanting. I started seeing today, like, just nobody's chasing that sweeper. It's got a distinctive spin from everything else he throws, and it feels like people are just laying off of it because it does miss the zone most of the time, so they tend to just lay off and wait for the cutter, and the cutter he puts right on the edge, and most people can reach that. So it's something he's going to have to combat. I think he's really going to need to think about reintroducing that curveball. He needs something that goes down.
Yeah, I think the curveball is something that he could look. There's a couple things, right? Like today, he wasn't locating well. He got ahead of some guys and then threw some pitches that hung in the zone, and it really, really hurt him.
He got lucky too. Like Chisholm swung right through a center cutter, like 93 miles an hour. Wow. I was like, uh-oh. Yeah.
And the velocity thing, look, I just think it's something to keep an eye on, right? I mean, he was down in spring training. He was better today in that area.
Yeah.
But, velocity starts to matter whenever you're just trying to miss an extra bat or two. And he's not there. So I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but when you're a couple ticks down in velocity and you're not locating well, then you're going to have outings like this. So Mitch Keller is perfectly capable of pitching well, but those two factors, it's got my antennas up a little bit.
All right, well, I'll read Mitch's quotes from after the game, and then James, you can respond to that. He said, "It's all right. There were a lot of good things that came out of it, kept us in the game, obviously gave us a chance to win, kind of a grind a little bit, but made pitches when I had to, didn't execute some pitches there to Berger. He just really destroyed me today." He had a good game. I made some mistake pitches. He took advantage of them. That's the game of baseball. I feel really good. Felt really good out there. Everything felt great. He's saying that he feels great, but a lot of people are noting that velocity being a little bit down. Anything to be worried about, or just early season?
I'm trying not to overreact to one game. I mean, I don't want to be one of those guys always overpaid. He got his extension, and it's one game. If it's 2, 3, 4 games, I mean, maybe. But what concerned me more was the placement of some of his pitches. There was too many 91, 92 mile an hour cutters right down the middle. And I mean, he did have some good. I mean, the first inning, he's like 6 pitches, 1, 2, 3. Fourth inning was really solid, but in between, Burger, and I mean, can't help the Triolo drop at second.
But he could have helped Triolo if he had thrown it to him at second. So, I mean, he didn't help himself defensively either. I will say, pretty impressive having Luis Serraz go 0 for 6.
Yeah,
you don't see that very often. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. Really, that was pretty insane for real. And I'm sorry that I laughed, James. I wasn't laughing at you. Longbeard here put in. I'm just glad we got to hear about Cruz's foot size again today on the broadcast. So it made me laugh, and it probably felt like I was laughing at your point. And I'm sorry.
No, not a bit. Wouldn't be the first time you laughed at one of my points.
Well, most of the time I try to make sure you turn the other way at least before I do it. But so
he didn't have to post it, James. I mean, that, but
I'm gonna post my foot size later. Just everybody know.
Right. And we try not to make this a game recap show. We like these to be a little more evergreen. But this is opening day, so I mean, we're kind of treating it a little bit special. Don't expect this every week. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to break it down week by week as we go. But I just don't want people to think that this is a different show now all of a sudden. The offense, though, it was a weird lineup. I mean, I know everybody keeps telling us we're not supposed to care about the lineup, but I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I guess after I watched Luzardo pitch for a while, though, I started to kind of enjoy seeing O'Neal Cruz being in that 6th spot. So it changed my mind. And Connor Joe did his job, man. He walked a couple times, got on base, scored a run, played great defense in right field, great defense at first base, saved the damn game at first base. O'Neal Cruz almost threw it away.
I was really hoping Connor would get a mention for that play at first, because
Tellez doesn't make that play, James.
No, not at all. Doesn't. Close.
No. That's crazy though that O'Neal Cruz keeps making it such an adventure. It takes a long time to understand how much time you have. I get that. He doesn't have to throw it 100 miles an hour. He doesn't have to throw it as fast as he does. He needs to everything needs to slow back down for him. He was getting there, I think, a little bit last year. He looked like he had found a way to throw an off-speed pitch over there every once in a while when he didn't need the fastball, right? And this one, man, he just threw it sidearm and just yanked it. I mean, this would have been 4 feet outside if he was a pitcher. So not good. Not good enough.
You can be excused for that when there is a close play at second base, right? You got to get rid of it, right? And someone's coming in and you're rushing things, and that stuff just happens. But obviously could have been a better throw. I was blown away by what Connor Joe did on that play.
It was great.
To be a right-handed first baseman, and by the way, Connor Joe is not a first baseman. And to be able to switch your feet on the bag like that and do that full backhand extension. And your first objective there is you got to stop that ball, right? You've got to keep that ball because the run's going to score.
Yep.
Then to keep his feet on the bag, and it's O'Neal Cruz throwing the ball to you, which it's humming. Just a massive play in the game. Connor Joe, 2 walks, like Gary said, 1 run scored. Played great defense.
You know what it was? It was shades of Josh Bell. That's how damn good it was.
Oh God, who would have ever thought We saw more plays from Josh Bell in that one game
than we've ever seen.
I mean, he's making plays on the run, throws. He's diving for balls and diving at the
Good
bag.
for
I'm
him,
like,
though, man.
yeah. Hey, what can you do?
If I'm not mistaken, on Twitter, Michael412, I think it was, said that's more assists than he's had in the last couple seasons combined.
I'm not sure if that was hyperbole or not, but I believed him immediately. So
yeah, so did I didn't even look. I just assumed it was.
Yeah, but let's get back to Luzardo for a second, because Josh from Bridge to Bucktober just said this. Luzardo is a beast, man.
Well, he is, yeah.
My goodness, if his pitch count would have been a little better in this game, we're probably talking about a different game right now. Because,
true,
man, that guy, he throws 97. It gets on you. He lives up in the zone. He makes it hard on righties to keep keep in at bat. Lefties really have no chance. So when you see Jack getting the day off and O'Neal Cruz down, was it funky looking? Maybe, but boy, I can't see how you didn't watch it. I can't see how you didn't watch that game and didn't see why they didn't do it.
While I was watching the game unfold, I was like, it all makes sense. I actually got it. I was like, oh, I see. I understood what happened now. Yeah, it was something to behold. It really was. Jared Triolo had a tough game. He did. He had a tough game. Making an error, not his style. Especially an easy one.
Almost made two. He bobbled another one and got the out. But
and then he's the one that comes through with the game-winning hit. So, good for him. He kept his head in the game, because he really did have a terrible game. He was 0 for 5 at that point. Managed to get that single in the RBI to drive in the run. Rowdy Tellez got pulled pretty quickly for a pinch hitter. And it was Edward Olivares off the bench hitting a home run in his first Pirates at bat. And he tatered that. He tatered that puppy, dude. That was the center. Deep. Yeah. That kid's got some power. That was interesting.
And we got some contributions from guys, but let's talk about, Hayes, couple hits, Brian Reynolds, big home run early. Cruz, man, O'Neal Cruz, you can pitch around him if you want. You give him one pitch or two to hit, he's probably still going to hurt you at some point. So the guys they need to produce did so in some pretty big situations today.
Yeah, I mean, Hayes was on base 4 times today. 2 walks,
was it
2
4
base hits. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, no joke. Brian Hayes, he's here. He's shown up offensively now. And Brian Reynolds did what Brian Reynolds does, man. He's barely played this spring. He's had a little bit of a back issue. He's one of the only ones that didn't get the flu. So that's kind of crazy. But I mean, he lives right. You can tell. He probably just looked at the flu and said, I don't want it. And they just turned around and left. Frightened of the man in black, right?
He does what he does. Does that also include glaring at the umpire on like the first pitch he sees of the game?
Yes, he absolutely did on the very first one. It was great. So
Brad
he
Reynolds,
says,
Reynolds is getting some of them Spencer Strider thighs going. Like, he's doing some work in the legroom, let me tell you. 2
hits, a walk, a couple RBIs, obviously the home run. O'Neal Cruz had that home run that I can't believe it got out.
Yeah.
It didn't look like a home run. It just didn't. I was like, how's this a home run? Like, the guy just kept going back and back and back. I'm like, and the roof's closed, so it didn't like there's any wind. It was crazy.
Yeah, you're talking 20. That's why it's hard to not predict him to have 25, 30 home runs, right? He's going to get those. He hits, he hits eight of those out a year, which he will. He's not going to hit 20, 25 of the other ones. I just can't see it.
Let's see. Josh wants to know how we feel about Michael Taylor getting the number 18. Maybe he's too much into the numbers, but that number should be protected a little. Van Slyke, Kendall, Walker. I mean, Pirates don't retire a lot of numbers. And, I mean, this isn't my bag. I don't care about this at all. There's very few numbers I really care about. 87, 68, 66. You know, like I'm more about hockey as far as the numbers go, because they actually will retire numbers. Baseball 21, give me that. Everything else is fine for me with the Pirates, except for what's already retired. What do you say, Jim?
I initially thought of Van Slyke and Kendall. Those are the ones. I had a Kendall jersey back in the day. God, that was all we had to hang on to. But I'm okay with it. The Pirates do enough pimping out of their past that I'm not going to get too worried, too worked up, or too overly anxious about this one.
I mean, James, you know that Yark loves it because he just went and changed out his jersey from Walker to Taylor, like he does to make sure he doesn't have to buy new jerseys, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm only busting his balls because he's here. So
I'm trying to think.
Yark saved some money. Do you care about the number thing?
Not at all. I mean, none of those guys won MVPs, led the team to a championship. I mean, great players. I loved them, but I mean, in the great history of the Pirates, I mean, they were good players. I mean,
yep.
I'm not worried about the number.
Good baseball game. Exciting baseball game. Really glad that it started the way it did. As far as getting out to a 1-0 start is much better than starting out 0-1. One other thing I want to talk about has to do with this, what I feel is almost historic run of lefty starters the Pirates are going to face right out the gate here. 5 in a row. And we have a call your shot that kind of ties right into that. So I say we go ahead and take a break, come back, and pick up talking about that. What do you think?
Let's do it.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. One more note from the game before we move on. That was a long game for Henry. That's a long game to catch. I think we could probably expect him to be off here, maybe, or DHing tomorrow, right? I don't think they're going to start him right away. What do you think?
Well, let's talk about Henry for a second, okay? So,
sure.
Henry, I look at him as like an offensive lineman. And if you're not talking about him and you're not noticing him much, then he's probably doing a pretty good job. I think he did a pretty good job. I thought at the plate he might have pressed a little. And truthfully, he got
robbed
right?
once.
Yeah. I mean, he put a couple good swings on some baseballs. But overall, look, I think Henry's going to be just fine. I really do.
Looked like he caught a pretty good game, James, right? I mean, I didn't see any kind of drama. Looks like, I think he and Chapman don't necessarily jive. I saw that in spring a little bit. Looked like Chapman almost was toying with him a little bit, tossing some balls in there, ignoring his calls. I felt there was a little bit of veteran bullying going on there. At least that's just me picking up on something that maybe not even there. But in this game, he had the whole pitch calm thing, and it just seemed like, again, I'm not sure, and he's questioning him like he's not pushing buttons. Just seems like those two aren't on the same page. But aside from that, everything looked great.
Yeah, I thought he looked really solid. I really loved how, I want to say it was in Ortiz's second inning when he blocked the ball in dirt and was really pumped about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all that's going to do is build his confidence behind the plate, and even more if he's lacking any, which I didn't see any lacking of confidence. But I was really glad to see how pumped he was when he blocked that in the dirt. I mean, it had me pumped.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm way less worried about him now. I'm just looking forward to watching him play this year and really kind of watch him settle in as an offensive talent. That takes
Yeah.
almost just as long as learning how to catch, and it feels like with most guys, one of them kind of takes the lead, and Henry's kind of got to stay on that line. He needs to hit, he needs to catch. He's got two masters he's trying to serve. That's a lot of work.
It is. And, the more I thought about it today, I was like, looking at Henry behind the plate. What he had to do last year, I think it was really difficult on him. I think guys that have to play out of position, and not just play out of position, but like play. Henry had to feel like an alien in right field. He really did. And to not have any of that kind of like familiarity as you're trying to play Major League Baseball, I'm just glad that seems to be out of the equation. So
I'm just putting up jokes while Jim's talking. So
I don't even look at the comments. So
I was trying not to laugh, but Dave Wendell's comment about Gabby Sanchez, he's an ex-coworker of mine, and he knows how much I hated Gabby Sanchez, so he's doing that just to get to me. And his son Keith's on here too. I've never seen him on one of your shows before, so that's cool that you got some viewers on here.
That's funny. I talk to Keith all the time, actually, online. So
yeah, Keith's great.
All right, so let's do Call Your Shot. As always, it's brought to you by the fine folks over at Shop Yins, one brand to rep all the black and gold. You can buy some really great stuff over there, or you could even get merch to help us rep the show like our friend James there did. Very kind of you in advance. Saw a few people down at spring training rocking the t-shirt. That was pretty cool. My wife was nowhere around to see it, though, so my status unfortunately remains the same in the household, Jim.
she wasn't impressed.
Not at all.
No.
I mean, in fact, I think it actually kind of makes her a little embarrassed, but we'll see how, hopefully it changes over time. Let's go ahead and get to it, though. Play Call Your Shot. All right, Call Your Shot this week is our buddy Yark. So how long will they go with a roster so right-handed heavy with bats? And I started thinking about it, like, are they really that heavy? And I'm like, yeah, I guess they couldn't really field like an all lefty lineup or even close to it. So they probably are a little heavy. But then I looked at like who they're facing at the beginning of the season here. They're starting out with 5 straight lefties. I don't think I've ever seen that before. If I have, it's slipped my mind. But you got Jesus Luzardo, AJ Puck tomorrow, Ryan Weathers on Saturday, and then Trevor Rogers on Sunday. And then up in Washington, we're going to face a lefty in game 1. So, I mean, maybe they kind of need those right-handed bats right now. It certainly didn't feel like too many today. They didn't even play them all, Jim. At least they didn't start them all. No. So, I don't know. I mean, any thoughts on that? Because the only lefty I can think that's close to coming up would be like either to make a decision to add McKinney, which I don't see happening because of the 40-man crunch right now, and maybe Ji-Hwan Bae when he comes back from the IL, but I don't know what you do with them. I don't necessarily want to play him a lot at second base, and maybe he's reached that territory where you're okay with him rotting. I don't know. That's the only lefty I can think of. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think in a perfect world, would you like to balance it more at times? Sure. Are the Pirates ever going to be living in that perfect world? I just don't. I don't see that. So I think you do the best you can with their options that they have. And it's going to turn into some guys sitting a little bit more than they want to, but this is just where we're at. They're not going to be able to cover all these, every hole in the lineup and on the roster. They're just not being realistic.
Yeah, James, what do you think, man? I mean, it feels to me like we're kind of low on lefties they even could go to.
Yeah, when you start talking about, or after you read the question, I was trying to rack my brain really quick to think of any lefties, and I think you you nailed them.
I mean, you'll get Grandal back, maybe. If he can start running again, then you get another switch hitter. So that probably helps your bench, right? But I mean, you don't really pinch hit your backup catcher all that often. So I don't know, man. They might not be in the greatest spot here with lefties.
Yeah, it's yeah, like you said, I've never seen 5 lefties in a row that I can remember, and I've watched baseball a little bit longer than you guys have, and I can't think of any, but yeah, I think you just put the best guys out there that you think gives you the best chance to win. And I mean, I don't know how many of these 5 games Jack is not going to start. I mean, he has to get some time against lefties, so I'm sure we'll see him start a couple of them, but against the tougher ones, maybe sit. But
I mean, Jim, that's a question right there. Jack Sawinski, I think there was a healthy debate going on today about whether he should be a platoon guy or he should be an everyday guy, right? I think you're doing yourself and the player a disservice by deciding right now. I mean, don't you need to see more? I mean, I think they're setting a guy up for success, which is, of course, he's going to hit righties better. And then they're setting up a guy to stay in neutral and never grow. How do you walk that line? You had to get to a point with Pedro Alvarez where you were like, this ain't going to work but he did it anyway. And he hit 30 home runs and super important player.
Yeah. I think with Jack, here's the difference with Jack and O'Neal Cruz. I think you keep O'Neal Cruz in the lineup regardless, right? Because he's just such a...
If for nothing else, he makes the other team burn their bullpen.
Yes. I mean, it's way more than just the at-bat he's in, right? Okay. So now you've got a guy like Jack. Do I have a problem with them when they're facing a really tough, like power lefty? And I consider Luzardo to be that. Giving him, that's the day that you want to give him a day off and you're going to put someone else in there. It just happened to be the first game of the year. I don't know if I'd read too much into it. I don't have a problem with that, as long as whenever he's facing lefties that I don't necessarily fear, so to speak, that he's in there and he's getting his cuts and swings and at bats in those situations.
I mean, I could argue, James, that AJ Puck, he's a converted reliever, but he's a prolific strikeout artist. He will absolutely carve O'Neal Cruz and Jack Sawinski to pieces. So that's part of why I think with Hank, I would suggest making sure he's a DH at least to keep his bat in the lineup. Try to keep as many righties as you can out there. But I worry about Jack facing those strikeout artists. That said, I worry about Jack not facing those strikeout artists. I really want this year to have some answers to some questions. If Jack isn't an everyday guy, that changes some things that you have to do with the roster, and it changes some things that are holes. You've only got, Taylor for 1 year. It's not like they've solved the outfield by signing him. You have Jack for a long time. Is he a part-time player or is he a full-time player? We need to find out. So I don't want to pussyfoot around with finding out. I just want to find out this year. Cruz, I want to eat all the crap sandwiches he serves at shortstop this year because I don't want to have a question about it when this season's over. I want to go, yep, shortstop. Nope, better find another place.
Both those guys that you mentioned, Jack and Cruz, even facing super tough lefties, if they can get the bat on the ball, they both have such effortless power that I think you just got to take that risk some days and give him a shot at it. I mean,
right.
I mean, like you said, you're afraid that he doesn't get those at bats. I think he needs them because how else will we know? Like you mentioned, you want questions answered. We're not going to know the answer unless we see it. And I think he has the ability to hit them good enough to where he's still going to be feared. enough that they're going to try to pitch him tight or pitch him on the edge. They're not just going to throw stuff down the middle. And
Right.
it's,
I mean, Jim, it's a fine line. You can't just sit him. You know, you can't like just not do it.
Yeah.
But you are trying to win. So you got to make decisions that help you win too. And if Jack's just going to go, 3 for 100 against lefties, then okay, I guess there's no alternative there, right? That said, that 3 for 100, he probably drew about 30 of his walks there too. So it's not like he's not doing anything. It's just, I don't know how you play this where you actually force him to be uncomfortable, but don't screw the team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what you do is, to me, Jack is still an everyday guy, with the caveat that if there is going to be a really tough lefty on the mound, I would probably if you're going to give him a day off, that's when I would do it.
Right.
Everybody else I mean, look at Rowdy Tellez today in that game. And I hate to go back to this. It's all we have is this first game right now. But Rowdy Tellez looked like, he didn't have a chance. And this is a guy that supposedly can hold his own a little
I was just
bit.
going to say that because D Money here says, I also don't think Rowdy still typically starts against lefties, Mucho or the first and outfield. They may have to do that, but I'm just saying his reputation is not that he needs a platoon. He's a guy that typically can hit lefties. Now, Derek Shelton pinch hit for him today. So
which I was glad to see.
I was glad to see it too, but Derek Shelton clearly doesn't feel that same way, because the bench was getting short and he did it anyway. So, he clearly felt it was important enough to do that. So I don't know. I thought it was an interesting point that we needed to get to. We wanted to talk about a little bit about these roster decisions that were made that we didn't know about. So I want to make sure we get to those. Because you and I left a lot of material on the cutting room floor last week, Jim. So.
Well, Gary, we had to. You got to do a show, right?
Right. So Ryan Ryder, a non-roster invitee, he only had, I think, 1 inning of major league experience, but he had a really good spring and he didn't get an opportunity today, but I think he's earned his spot. Let's make no mistake, he and Hunter Stratton are both on this roster because Carmen Mlodzinski and Colin Holderman got sick or hurt. And that cleared up 2 spots. And it also caused the Pirates to have to do some 40-man shuffling. And I think that might have cost McKinney a shot at making this roster, Jim. I think that's why Olivares won out. He was already on the 40-man. And they couldn't make that addition of McKinney because of all the 40-man moves they had to make, which, by the way, were Ali Sanchez, Kanan Smith and Jigba, and Jackson Wolf, which was a little bit surprising. So, James, talk about any of that you'd like to.
I was not happy with the Jackson Wolf. I get that his velocity was down in the spring, but I would much rather have seen Selby go personally. I get keeping Falter for now, maybe. I could have lived with him going also. But, the Jackson Wolf one is the one that really ticked me off a little bit. I would have rather have kept him in the system. I think I saw enough of Selby last year, and I know he's got great stuff, but last year
he was abysmal this spring, too, below the line abysmal. In fact, Josh Booth on my site just wrote this piece called Trend Line that we started. He wrote this whole thing about, the numbers of the competitive balance of who they faced and everything.
That was a really good article.
The picture he painted of Colin Selby, holy hell. I was like, wow, I've never seen it like that. That was unbelievable. Like, he wasn't just bad. He was bad. And ouch.
Look, those guys are going to get chance after chance after chance, and for better or worse. When you have velocity and you have stuff, you're going to keep getting chances.
Yeah.
It's like a wide receiver who's really fast. Or I'm trying to think of another, sports analogy to that, but it's the same thing. Selby, he's been was bad this spring. He was bad last year. I don't know what else you can say about that. I feel bad. I will say I feel bad for McKinney because that dude, and this is the thing, like sometimes it's not so much about what you do or don't do. It's circumstances beyond your control that dictate your fate.
Yeah.
And
like I got here a comment from Mike Benko. McKinney is terrible. Nobody's saying he's Lou Gehrig. He had a great spring. The team has a hole. We figured, so be it. Like he might make it and play for a little bit, and then get cut.
I mean, if you're talking about just guys that performed, he performed and did pretty well. So I feel bad for guys like that because it ends up being something beyond their control. And is he going to make some big difference? No, but baseball's a hard game, and he's fighting for his life, right? So I feel bad for dudes like that.
So I was talking to Anthony Murphy earlier this morning. We were talking about like who might get DFA'd, so we just threw a couple scenarios back and forth. We both mentioned CSN. We both mentioned Ali Sanchez. I think I had Selby, and I used Josh's information to back that up. And and some other stuff. I think I named one other player, Kyle Nicholas. I said maybe, although I'd prefer not to. Jackson Wolf was not a guy that I had in my head. But I did suggest to Murph that because they know they're going to have to eat some more 40-man spots, you got guys like Germond, Skeens, I'm not going to list them all off, but all the NRIs that are down there and the 40-man option guys that can come up. They're going to happen, a few of them at least, right? So I thought this might be a time where you see the team kind of just admit a mistake. And I think maybe Jackson Wolf was admitting a mistake. The Padres put him on their 40-man roster and rushed him up in an emergency fashion. So he was already on the 40-man when he was traded, still on the 40-man. He hasn't looked like a 40-man pitcher the entire time he's been here. I think this was just admitting a mistake. And I think he'll probably squeak through, quite frankly. He's young and he hasn't done anything. And he has no velocity. This isn't the type of guy that people go out and steal usually. I wouldn't think.
Even somebody like the A's?
I mean, if there's going to be somebody that does it, it's going to be somebody like the A's or the Nationals or a team that, like the Pirates in 2021, but not the Pirates this year. And, with 40-man spots getting low, I ask you to just look at that depth chart and think how far you'd have to get to using Jackson Wolf this year. You'll never get there. You'll never get there. So, at some point, he was going to lose his spot. So I'm saying right now, in the flood of all the other teams that had the DFA people to make room, might be the best time to try to squeak him through. That's all I'm saying.
I think, too, at some point, you have to not be afraid of your own shadow when you're making moves, right? When you get down near the end of the 40-man. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But there are plenty of guys that, don't end up being on a 40-man and then they find a little life somewhere else. And if that happens, I'm okay with it. I think you just got to make the best decision you can make and move on from there.
Plus, Olivares made them look really smart today. So
at least for one day, right?
Yes. Let's talk about the two controversial moves. Leover Peguero goes down for Alika Williams. So Alika Williams is the backup shortstop on the team. He's easily the best fielding shortstop they have that isn't named Shishay Shang, I would say, at this point. So I'm not too worried about that aspect of it. I know, Jim, you're real big on Peguero getting the at-bats. I think 1,000 in the minors is enough for me to just – I don't care about that anymore at this point. I get the regular at-bat thing. It's part of it. And I'm sure you'll have more to expand on about that. For me, this was all about Peguero getting sick, though. I mean, when we heard about Colin Holderman, Leover Peguero went through it too. He has nowhere near season ready. I think that was the primary driver for this decision. I don't think it was really about thinking Alika won it. What do you think?
Me or James?
You. James went first last time.
Yeah, like what I did was when this happened, I went right past whether it was the right or wrong decision, and then went straight to, but if you've made the decision, then this is what I would do. That I wanted him to be getting playing time. I wanted the at-bats. I think you're really setting a guy up for failure at the major league level, not knowing, first of all, if this was just Triola just flat out won it. It doesn't matter if Peguero was sick, he was just going to be the guy, or if it was something that had to do with that. So for me, it was much more like once the decision has been made, then I want him playing, right? I mean, he's 23 years old. I think you're really asking a lot of a guy to sit on a major league bench and perform it well at something in very.
Looks like Jim bros James, so you get to finish his point about how awesome it is to.
I'm back.
Oh, he's back. Go ahead,
I'm
finish
back.
your point
No.
then, Jim.
Sorry about that. I didn't even know.
I appreciate
guess,
the extra editing work. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank Verizon Fios for that one. No, it's just like if you have any hope of Peguero still being something, then I want him playing, and I want him still to be able to get those at bats. If you don't give a crap about him, then yeah, let him come up, let him sit, let him play sparingly.
I would also say, like, if Trello plays, roughly like he did today for a month, I could see them making a change. I mean, like, you win the job out of camp, that's one thing. It doesn't necessarily mean you do it forever. I think Peguero is a very talented kid. I think Nick Gonzalez is still a guy we shouldn't have 100% decided on. I also think that there's zero chance they can get through this season with all of those second basemen on this roster, on the 40-man roster. They're going to have to deal one. They're going to have to, or they're going to lose one for free. Because there's just no room for this many. There's too many of them. Unless they decide O'Neal Cruz isn't one, then there might not be too many. But that all needs to kind of get decided towards the end of this year.
And that's the other reason I would like Peguero to be down playing if he's not going to be up here, is just simply because, like, if you're going to ever think about moving him and he's playing well, I mean, the best case scenario is Trio is playing well and Peguero is playing well, and then you have something to work with there. So
I would say that I think we've probably seen enough of Peguero to know he's probably not a major league shortstop. So yeah. I'm not 100% sure that they have an answer for moving Cruz, whether he's good or bad. So there are some issues here still. We have a lot of options, but I think we have a lot of options to play one position that a lot of people just kind of move somebody that doesn't defend all that well too and get away with it. So we're developing a position that is not highly coveted. That's not great. Need to get some more that stick at shortstop, I think, to give yourself some options, because Alika and his non-bat aren't going to help.
Yeah,
one more guy.
I just going to say, I think they're going to give Cruz a very, very long leash. I really do. I just don't. I see them giving him as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, I think like 20 errors this year. I think they'll have to talk. I don't see them thinking that that's a winning combination. I think they'll think about moving him if it's bad again. And what we've seen in short spurts, the arm's scary. It makes an adventure when there doesn't need to be one more often than it's helping.
Yeah.
So reel him in, get him a personal coach that does nothing but teach that kid how to ramp his throws back. I don't care what you do something. But because the footwork's fine, he gets the balls and everything. I just gotta hit the target, man. Aim small, hit small. Don't be aiming at the side of a barn. Let's do one more player because it's the most controversial of them all. Bailey Falter in the rotation. Everyone was excited. I know, Jim, that you want to be wrong about Bailey Falter.
No, I want to be wrong about Rowdy Tellez.
Yeah. I mean, James, Bailey Falter in the rotation, I've heard it's more of an opening thing, but then they went ahead and used Ortiz tonight the way they used him, and Ortiz was the guy I thought was going to be the second half of that piggyback, and the other guy I thought was Fleming, who they also used for one out tonight. So I'm not 100% sure that that's going to hold water. How long is this going to last? How long of a leash does he have? What should we expect?
I did better be really short. I can't deal with this for very long if he's as bad as he's been. I won't do it. I can't. Yeah, I mean, opening for who? I mean, Ortiz, I guess, could go in 4 days. He could come in for 4 innings then if they don't pitch him between now and then when Falters turns up. I mean, I don't know if that's what they were thinking, and I mean they were probably hoping not to have an extra inning game on day one. But
yeah, because I could even see Ortiz working his way back into the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean after today, I really don't want him to. I kind of liked him in that role tonight. I mean, that had me pumped with, I mean, that energy he brought in those 2 innings he was out there. It was, I mean, I was psyched. I mean, especially that last double play he got. I mean, that, but I mean, Ruanzi, I mean, it's when he comes back, I don't, what's paternity leave? 3 days, 5 days?
I think it's 3. But Jim here, Billy Tissue says he thinks Falter is holding a spot for Lauer, Germán, or Skeens. I have to admit, I've thought this too myself. But then the other side of me, Jim, thinks to myself, are the Pirates that smart?
Loaded question.
Yeah. You know, all spring I felt this gnawing concern that Bailey Falter was still going to be in that rotation.
Well, dude, we heard them talking about him at Pirates Fest. Like, they were mentioning him like above Skeens and stuff. Where, you know, they're like, you know, guys like Falter are really going to step up. But we heard them say it like at the Q&A. We heard them say it in their individual chats. They brought him up a billion times. I think that's why we felt that way.
Yeah, you just couldn't shake that feeling that he was still going to be part of the early rotation plans. I think, you know, I don't know. I think they know that they've got some reinforcements coming at some point, and he's maybe like the best starter that they don't have to mess with, and they can let him go out there every 5 days. And once every 4 starts, he's going to give them a decent start. It's hard for me to figure out any more than that.
Yeah, it was a shock to me to see that he was in the rotation, and here's why. Because bringing Jared Jones straight from spring makes me feel like, okay, it's go time. We don't care about money. We don't care about the extra year of control. We don't give a crap about anything. We're not worried about this kid not having enough innings. We don't care how much he's pitched at AAA. Just look at what he did. We want to win. We want that pitcher. And then you give me Bailey Falter, and I'm like, you didn't have to do that. There were other guys that you could have picked. Like, I would have preferred Priester. Or like, and I really mean that. I thought Priester had an okay spring. I really did. He had a couple innings that weren't good, but for the most part, I thought he kind of handled himself pretty well. I would have preferred to see that. I feel like we're holding on to something that isn't worth holding on to. Like, we have a sack of sand, and we swear to God there's a gem in there. You know, but like, I just don't think there is.
I would have much preferred to watch a bad Priester outing than a bad Falter outing. Because at least then I think we're trying to achieve something, like get him out there, get experience at the major level. It's, I mean, some guys take a little longer. Keller took a little bit longer. Other guys historically have taken longer and don't come up and just start throwing no hitters and striking out 20 games like Kerry Wood. Some guys take some time to develop, and you got to do that in the majors. I mean, he's not going to learn anything in AAA.
I'd be uncomfortable with them bringing up Germán quickly anyway. You know, that report that came out, like where he was basically, I'm still drinking. I don't have a problem.
But he's drinking ice.
I mean, I don't like it. I'm just saying, I don't like it. I want a little contrition. Okay? I just want a little bit of like, hey, I screwed up. I didn't hear that. I heard like, the Yankees overreacted to me doing something.
Yeah, that's the thing is like if you're not going to take any accountability, then that worries me because then any problems you do have, how are you going to address those? That worries me. Getting back to the whole point of the Falter situation, whatever. I think the disappointing thing for me was this spring is that one of Ortiz, Contreras, or Priester didn't really take control completely of the situation, and it left the door open for the Pirates to do this. Right. Whereas, and so here we are, because Falter's the fallback guy to give these guys a little more time, I think, to figure it out, and that's disappointing.
Yeah, I'd have to say we'll see how it goes. I hope they have a short leash with everybody. Really. I hope if Gonzalez fails, I hope they're quick to do something about it. The difference this year that hasn't really been there in the past is they have options now. Options on the 40-man. Options off the 40-man. They have ways they can address this, and it's not fishing on the waiver wire or making a trade that we all mythologically come up with about who they could move for who, or G1 Bay for, somebody's third starter. Like,
yeah,
we don't have to think like that because they actually have them. I would just like to see them not waste a lot of time on something that isn't working. Gonzalez is the guy that I think you can safely let him warm to the task a little bit, if only because he has done it in this league before. It hasn't done it a lot recently. Let's give him a little bit of a run and see what happens. Falter, I don't know, man. You've never earned really a spot and stuck. So I kind of need to see something. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not going to get big mad about it or anything, and I'm certainly not one of those guys that hopes I'm wrong. I want him to be good. I would love for him to be good, but I feel like even if he is good, he's only going to be so good, and he's going to get replaced by one of those guys we mentioned anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've got the situation where the Pirates are probably foreseeing in a couple months this working itself out naturally, just from guys coming up or guys not performing at the major league level, and it'll work itself out. So,
well, hey, we talked for a really long time. It was fun day, fun opening day, fun game. 1-0, first place. It's on timestamp now. You can't take it away.
Yeah, for once we get to celebrate. Tomorrow might be a different day.
It might be. James, thanks for joining us, brother. I'm glad we were able to finally make it happen, my friend.
Yeah. COVID and cancer.
Right. Not your personal cancer, though, right?
No, my stepfather, who's recovering nicely.
Wonderful.
Everything seems to be working out for him. So 12-hour surgery for an old man is never easy, but he's a tough old bird.
I mean, I watch it on MASH every week and it seems easy, but I hear what you're saying. They seem to joke right through it. So, but everybody, thank you for joining us for a special late night edition. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun to do. We're just three good friends talking baseball, and that's really what we should be doing at this time of year, celebrating a little bit of positivity about your baseball team. Let's toss it off to the next generation.
Let's go Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. All right, see you guys later.